Joshua Plotnik. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Psychology. I'm also the director of the Animal Behavior and Conservation graduate programs. I teach a number of classes for undergraduate and graduate students, including animal cognition and animal behavior. At the graduate level, I teach classes for primarily master's students. So I teach about the link between animal behavior, welfare, cognition, conservation. And so one class I teach is a seminar class where incoming students into the master's program get to hear from a lot of different speakers from around the different fields that we teach about. So they might hear from someone from a nearby zoo, or they might hear from a professor at Hunter that's doing really interesting animal behavior cognition research. They may speak to or hear from the leader of a nonprofit charity that's in this particular space. I also teach a class that can be taught both for the undergraduate and the graduate students here, linking human culture and human-wildlife conflict. And that's a really exciting class because the students lead it. Every week we choose a particular human-wildlife conflict around the world. It might be something like human-elephant conflict in Thailand. And we talk about how traditions and culture in those countries might impact the relationship that humans and wildlife have. When we invite those speakers, sometimes they come in person. This class can be taught as a hybrid course, so we also have the opportunity to have speakers from around the world Zoom into the classroom. As a comparative psychologist, I'm really interested in understanding the evolution of intelligence or the evolution of cognition. And much of my work has been focused on this idea we call convergent cognitive evolution. So typically, psychologists that are interested in understanding how human intelligence evolves might look to study our closest living relatives, and that would be species like the great apes, so chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, orangutans. The idea being if those animals share similar cognitive abilities to ourselves, then that would suggest that our common ancestor with them probably also shared that cognitive capacity. But convergent cognitive evolution, which is something I'm really interested in, looks at a diverse group of evolutionarily distant species. So it could be humans and the great apes and other primates, but we also look at cetaceans like dolphins, elephants, or birds to see whether or not all those different species share similar cognitive abilities. And if they do, that would suggest that they evolved in environments that required the ability to be flexible and intelligent in order to survive. And so for the past 20 years or so, I've been using the Asian elephant as a model to study not only how cognition evolves, but how it's expressed in an animal's natural world. And so a lot of our work now is focused not only on understanding how elephants are flexible in their behavior and in their decision making, so how they make decisions based on the obstacles that they might face in their natural environment or in captivity. But we're also really interested in trying to figure out how our work understanding how elephants think and how elephants navigate their natural world might also help us come up with solutions to human-elephant conflict. So the biggest issue facing or threatening Asian elephants is human-elephant conflict, which basically means that humans and elephants are living in fractured habitat. They're now sharing the same space. They're now competing for resources, and that results in injury and death to both humans and elephants. And we're trying to figure out whether or not better understanding the needs and the thinking of elephants in their natural world might help us come up with better solutions to human-elephant conflict in the wild. So we have field sites in Thailand. I've been working in Thailand since 2007. We study both elephants living in human care, meaning that we can get really close to the elephants. We can develop experiments to study how they think, how they cooperate, how they solve problems, how they use their trunks to smell the world around them. But we also study elephants in the wild, and that allows us to install really interesting and exciting cognitive experiments like problem-solving puzzle boxes, or apparatuses that allow us to look at how elephants respond to particular predators or novel objects. So in the wild, we don't get really close to the elephants like we do with captive elephants. Instead, we set up a system of video camera traps. So basically you can install an infrared camera trap in the wild in a protected metal box so that hopefully most wildlife can't damage it. And it responds to motion and heat differential, and it allows for us to collect video data about elephants without us having to actually be there. So one experiment that we did recently, this was a study that was done with my PhD student, Sarah Jacobson, who's recently graduated. We designed a puzzle box to investigate what we call innovative problem solving. So the ability for an animal to basically solve novel problems and adjust one solution on one novel puzzle to other potential puzzles that they also need to solve. And so we created this 3-level puzzle box. It's also called an extractive foraging device. So basically the way this works is the elephant has access to these 3 boxes if they can open the 3 doors. So by opening, for instance, the top door, you need to push the door open in order to get jackfruit that's hidden behind it. The middle door might be a pull door, so you need to grasp a chain, pull the door towards you to open it to grab the jackfruit inside. And the third door on the bottom might be a slide door, so the elephant needs to take their trunk and slide the door open. So in each of these 3 different novel puzzles, the elephant needs to have a novel new action, slide, pull, or push, in order to get access to the food inside. And so we were really interested in seeing whether or not, A, elephants could figure out these different puzzles in the wild, B, how fast they could do it, and C, whether or not each of the elephants that were tested varied from the others. In other words, do different elephants have different abilities to solve this novel puzzle? So the puzzle box allows us to look at a lot of different things, but one in particular is looking at cognitive flexibility. So are certain elephants or are Asian elephants as a species capable of being flexible in their cognitive decision making? Can they face an obstacle and then be able to figure out their way around that obstacle flexibly? But we're also really interested in personality, which is what makes one individual person or one individual elephant different from the next. So different elephants, just like people, have different personality traits. Some elephants might be bolder, meaning that they're less afraid of a potential predator. They might be more curious about a predator than afraid of it. Some elephants might be what we call neophilic, which means that they're attracted to novelty. They might be more interested in exploring novel objects in their environment. And personality means that they maintain this particular trait over long periods of time or across different contexts that they might face in the wild. And what we're really interested in doing in our lab, particularly in one of our wild elephant field sites in Thailand called the Salak Pra Wildlife Sanctuary, which we estimate has a little over 300 elephants in it, we're really interested in understanding whether or not investigating personality in elephants will allow us to come up with novel ways of mitigating the human-elephant conflict that both the humans and the elephants living in this landscape are facing. So surrounding this 900 square kilometer, I don't know how many miles it is. Can I just say kilometer? To hell with it, right? People have to figure out the metric system.
Kilometer is fine.
Okay, sorry, I just figured in New York I can't say kilometers. Surrounding this 900 square kilometer wildlife sanctuary are all these different agricultural fields. So farmers are planting cassava, corn, sugarcane, pineapple. And the elephants are leaving that protected sanctuary, which is a safe space for them, and that they don't have, they're not interacting with tourists. They're only interacting with rangers who are protecting them and researchers like us. But the elephants might leave that space, go into a farmer's crop field, eat the farmer's crops, which, as you can imagine, makes the farmers pretty upset. That results in the conflict. But what we found is that it's not all the elephants living in that sanctuary that are raiding the farmer's crop fields. It's only a select few. So our research right now is aimed at trying to identify particular personality traits in these elephants that might make them more likely to be what we call crop raiding elephants. And if we can understand whether or not a bolder elephant that's less afraid of novelty than another might be more likely to go into a farmer's crop field. And if we can determine that, then we are now working on mitigation strategies, particularly what we call targeted personality devices that can be installed in and around crop fields to deter particular elephants based on their personality traits. Elephants eat 250 kilos of food a day, so there's a lot of consumption going on in these fields over many hours. So like every kid who is fascinated by or wants to work with animals, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I had the opportunity as a New Yorker to work with all different types of vets throughout my high school and college career. I worked with vets that were working with horses and exotic animal vets, dogs and cats. And I realized over time, especially as I started my undergraduate career taking classes in biology and chemistry, that medicine wasn't really right for me. And I had an opportunity to take some animal behavior classes, and it just kind of opened up this new world to me. I had no idea that you could study animal behavior as a career, and to get into research would be something that would allow me to kind of have a lot of the questions that I was really curious about answered. And so I had an opportunity to work with a psychologist at Emory University in Atlanta named Franz de Waal, who studies primate behavior. I worked with him as an undergraduate, and then I had an opportunity to work with him as a PhD student. And he presented me with this opportunity to study whether elephants could recognize themselves in a mirror about 6 months into my PhD, when I let him know that while I was really excited by the work that he was doing on primate behavior and cognition, I was interested in asking questions about social behavior and social intelligence in other species. And so when I had this opportunity to study elephant mirror self-recognition back here in New York at the Bronx Zoo, I jumped at the chance. One of my colleagues here at Hunter College now, Diana Reese, and I worked on that study together with Professor DeWall. We were able to demonstrate that elephants do in fact recognize themselves in a mirror. And I got really excited about carving out a future research program dedicated to using the Asian elephant as a model for understanding the evolution of intelligence. And so that was, like I said, nearly 18, 19 years ago. I had an opportunity with Professor DeWall's support to go to Thailand, establish field sites there. And as I said, for the better part of 2 decades, we've been studying elephant behavior and cognition in Thailand and other Asian countries. Something that I've always been really surprised by is how different people's opinions are about the intelligence of animals. I think people try very often to relate their experiences with their pets, like their dogs and their cats, to all other animals on the planet. And what we've learned is that different species adapt differently to the worlds in which they live. I can give this great anecdote. When I was initially thinking about working with wild elephants, but wasn't really sure yet, I was at a meeting where a local villager in central Thailand expressed anger that people were training elephants to basically go into people's homes and raid their refrigerators or their crop fields. And the villager said that the reason he thought this was the case is because he had seen an elephant go up to the back of his house, turn on a watering hose, drink from it, and then turn it off before the elephant walked away. And that was kind of a huge revelation for me, because I realized, well, wait a minute, that elephant hadn't been trained to do that. That was just a really intelligent elephant that had figured out how to do this. And so what I've always been surprised by is the way in which different people perceive the animal behavior and the animal intelligence that's happening around them. And I hope that our research has the opportunity to inform people about the different ways in which different species and different animals interact with and adapt to their natural world. One of the classes that I teach, which is again the link between human culture and human-wildlife conflict, is a great class to teach students who are interested in animal behavior and conservation, because most students have this perception when they think about the relationship between humans and wildlife, that the focus may be entirely on one of those parties or the other. So for instance, people might be really fascinated by the fact that wildlife are just trying to live their lives, and they get into these conflicts with people and they're being killed. And so people get very upset about that. But I think what people often fail to realize is that the farmers, for instance, who are dealing with elephants raiding their crops, or people living alongside the riverbanks in Central or South America, going to collect water and then being attacked by a crocodile, the people's lives are dramatically affected by the wildlife as well. And so I think what I really enjoy about teaching a class like that is that the students, by the end of it, come to realize that it's not the fault of one party or the other. It's really about trying to figure out ways to promote coexistence between humans and wildlife, rather than placing blame on one party or the other. I'm a New Yorker. I was raised in New York, and so having the opportunity to come back to New York to be a faculty member and to work with such wonderful students here at Hunter College is a dream come true. I really actually enjoy the balance of being able to, teach classes and work with my students here in New York City, but also be able to go during winter break or the summers off to Thailand, which is a completely different environment, although I will say that Bangkok is very similar to New York in terms of its busyness and its diversity, but that kind of dichotomy between being able to go into the field and in the jungle and sitting in a watchtower with my students and observing elephants, and then being able to come back here and relate that information to the students here at Hunter is fantastic. And something that I really value about being a faculty member at Hunter is the opportunity to work with students from incredibly diverse backgrounds. It could be racial or ethnic diversity. It could be a diversity of experience, and the opportunity to not only teach students from diverse backgrounds, but to learn from those students is something that I really value.